Dabo Swinney is a coach that has completely taken over college football. Clemson is on top of the college football world and they don't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. The national championship and consistent playoff appearances shows how great they are. And for today's video, I want to talk about how Dabo Swinney built Clemson to what it is, and his personal background information. So let's talk about some Clemson Tigers and Dabo Swinney. William Christopher Swinney, aka Dabo Swinney, was born on November 20th of 1969 in Birmingham, Alabama. Now people always ask if his actual name is Dabo. Well, he was given that nickname when his older brother would try to say "that boy," but it sounded like Dabo, and so the nickname just stuck and here we are today. So Dabo was raised in Pelham, Alabama, and he also played football. He walked on at the University of Alabama to play wide receiver in 1989. In his time with the Tide, he ended up earning a scholarship, and he was a letterman for 3 years. He also was a part of the 1992 team that ended up winning the national championship. Even though he only caught 7 passes for 81 yards in his 3 seasons of playing, he was twice named to the All-SEC academic team and was an honor roll member. So he might have not made a huge impact on the field, but he was a great teammate and definitely a great student. After his playing days ended in 1992, Dabo didn't have a shot to be a professional player, but he did have a shot to become a great coach. So he became a graduate and assistant for Alabama from 1993 through 1995. And once he finished that, he got a great coaching job for someone fresh out of college. In 1995, Dabo became an assistant coach for Alabama, coaching the wide receivers and tight ends and rotating between these positions throughout his time there. And he stayed in that position all the way up until 2001. But when Mike Dubose was fired, Dabo was out of a job. So Dabo decided to sit out the 2001 season. The former strength coach at Alabama, Rich Wingo, had become a president of a real estate company, and Dabo worked for him from April of 2001 through February of 2003. In his work there, he worked on development projects around the United States. But this was not going to be the rest of his career. Down in Clemson, head coach Tommy Bowden had offered Dabo an assistant coaching job to become the receivers coach. And in 2003, Dabo joined him. Now Dabo knew Coach Bowden because he was the receivers coach at Alabama in 1989 when Dabo walked on. Coach Swinney also became the recruiting coordinator for the Tigers, and he was great at both of his jobs. Now Coach Bowden never won an ACC title at Clemson, and they never finished first in their division. And he was there from 1999 through 2008. But during that 2008 season, Tommy resigned as head coach 6 games into the season, and Clemson was coming off a 9-4 season in 2007. They had several players returning at skill positions, and many expected Clemson to be a good team that could win the ACC, and even to some a national championship contender. But they really started out flat, and after not achieving big results over his tenure, Tommy decided to resign as head coach. Now Clemson could have promoted Vic Koenning, who was their defensive coordinator and a former head coach at Wyoming, or they could have promoted assistant coach Brad Scott, who was a former head coach for South Carolina. But they decided to promote Dabo as the head coach because he had fresh ideas and was a great recruiter. When he took over, he also took over the offense. He fired Rob Spence, their offensive coordinator, and took over the play calling. But when Dabo took over, there was scrutiny. Some fans and people criticized his lack of experience and not being a coordinator and didn't think he was fit. But Dabo didn't listen to the hate. When Dabo started running the ship, he tightened it up. Like any coach, he was worried about the culture there and wanted players to start acting more professional. So he implemented the Tiger Walk before games, where players and coaches walk the parking lot outside Memorial Stadium as they head in for pregame preparations. Dabo's first game took place versus Georgia Tech, but they lost 21-17. But in his second game against Boston College, the Tigers won 27-21, which gave Dabo his first career win. The rest of 2008, they went 3-2 while losing in the Gator Bowl, but this was just the start. Clemson was able to recruit some of their future that offseason. Taj Boyd was an incoming freshman who would be a key contributor in the future. And I can't forget to mention some of their other players returning. Star running back CJ Spiller was going to go down the record books for Clemson, and this was his last season there. Now the 2009 season, they still went through some more growing, going 9-5. Now CJ Spiller was the real bright spot. He scored a touchdown each game that season, and after the season ended, they retired his number. Clemson won the Music City Bowl versus Kentucky, but the 2010 season, they had got some pretty good recruits. Coach Swinney was able to get Martavis Bryant and Vic Beasley, who was actually a tight end, but getting DeAndre Hopkins was really going to help the offense, and he had a huge impact on the Tigers. Clemson ended up going 6-7 in 2010, and they were competitive, but they just fell short a couple times, and people were questioning if Dabo could really get this job done. And Dabo even expected that he would be fired after the season, because this was their first losing season since 1998. But it's a great thing they stuck through the rough times, because it's all up from here. Clemson had another star receiver coming in Sammy Watkins, and in 2011 they started out really hot. Recently hiring a great offense coordinator in Chad Morris, their offense was about to get fixed. They started out 8-0, but they lost 3 out of 5 and played in the Orange Bowl. Now they didn't have a great showing in their bowl game, but that season was a step in the right direction. The 2012 season, Clemson hired Brent Venables to become their defensive coordinator, and he fixed their defense up. Taj Boyd was entering his 3rd season as the starter, and the Tigers were ready for another great year. Clemson finished the year 11-2 while winning the Peach Bowl. And and this was their first 11-win season since their national championship team from 1981. The 2013 Clemson Tigers again went 11-2 and won the Orange Bowl versus Ohio State. After the year, Dabo Swinney received an 8-year, $27 million contract, and he was locked in. But losing Taj Boyd after the season was a tough loss, but his replacement was going to go down as a Clemson legend. Entering the 2014 season, freshman quarterback Deshaun Watson was coming to campus, and he was ready to compete for the starting job. They had a QB battle in their first 3 games, and Deshaun ended up winning the job. They started out 1-2, and he had a lot of ground to make up. And that's exactly what he did. Clemson only lost 1 game that season with Deshaun as the starter, and they won the Athletic Bowl versus Oklahoma to cap off a 10-3 season. The 2015 season, Clemson signed Kelly Bryant, who backed up Deshaun in his final 2 years, and they lost their offensive coordinator Chad Morris. But this was going to be Dabo's best year so far. They went undefeated and entered the college football playoff as the #1 overall seed. They played Oklahoma and won 37-17, but now they had to face Dabo's old school in Alabama in the championship. This was an all-time classic game, and Deshaun Watson shined, but the Tigers fell just short at the end and lost 45-40. But this was not going to stop Clemson. They kept working towards their goal. Clemson had it all, and they were expected to get back to the title game the next year. They started out 9-4, but they lost at home versus Pittsburgh 43-42 on a last-second field goal. Now this is college football, and if you lose, your season could be on the line. But the team didn't lose focus, and they won their next 2 games and won the ACC championship game, so thankfully they ended up making the playoff. And as the 2 seed, they faced Ohio State, and they beat them down, winning 31-0. But this booked another national championship versus Alabama. This was a back-and-forth battle, but thankfully they had Deshaun Watson. Down 31-28 with 2 minutes left, Deshaun Watson took Clemson down the field in the red zone. Now they were prepared to kick a field goal to tie it, but they had just enough time to try getting a touchdown. And with 2 seconds left in the game, Deshaun Watson threw a touchdown pass to Hunter Renfrow to win the national championship 35-31. Now this was bittersweet for Dabo. For a coach that has only been at 2 schools in his career in Alabama and Clemson, it's very ironic that his first championship loss came versus Alabama and his first championship win came versus Alabama. But he definitely didn't want to lose, and this win proved him to be one of the elites in college football. Now the 2017 season, Deshaun Watson left for the NFL draft and Kelly Bryant became their next quarterback. Again winning the ACC championship, Clemson went 12-1 in the regular season and made the playoff as the #1 overall seed. But they had another matchup with Alabama again in the playoff, and the Crimson Tide were seeking revenge from the previous year. And that's what they got, winning 24-6, and the Tide went on to win the national championship. So now we are entering the 2018 season, and Clemson is second in the AP poll and has national championship hopes. They do have a bit of quarterback controversy though. Incoming freshman star quarterback Trevor Lawrence is looking like a superhero and could take the job away from Kelly Bryant, but we will just have to wait and see what Dabo does there. Either way, they're in a great situation. Now for Dabo, it just shows how hard it is to win in this sport. It took a long time to build Clemson, and they went through some ups and downs, but he made it work. Being able to recruit also helps a little bit, and Dabo is an excellent recruiter. Dabo is such a great guy and one that you can't find anything bad about. He and his mom were homeless his senior year in high school, and when Dabo walked on at Alabama, his mother went on to live with him there. His mother even had a horrible childhood. Having polio and spending 11 years mostly by herself to get better, her and her son's story is truly one of the best you'll find anywhere. They went through some tough times, but this is exactly why life happens for you, not to you. Dabo is a fighter and his team embodies exactly what he is about. And that's what makes Clemson Tigers different than any other school's athletes. Dabo Swinney is one of the best coaches in the sport, and he has earned everything he has.